Welcome to the Dead Pair Podcast, energized by KLMO Gameboard US, with your hosts, Jason Rambo and Sean Alley. Coming in hot with the 411 on all things sporting clays. Your go-to source for information, education, and entertainment, from the new shooter to the seasoned competitor.
Oh, I'm a junkie, man. I want to play with the buttons.
He just likes to throw people under the bus if you're not used to that yet. That's part of the show.
Does your brain hear what your mouth is saying?
Hey, I'm going to call Dave when the podcast is over and ask him what half the words are.
Let's rapid fire. Let's do the hot seat. Let's get her done.
Often imitated, but never duplicated. And now, it's showtime!
Yeah, the Dead Pair Podcast, energized by KLMO Gameboard US. What's up, Mr. Large in charge?
Do I really even need to say? I mean, we got somebody in studio that snuck in on us again.
I'm here about 5 hours earlier than last time.
Yeah, but it's still an hour and a half later than it was supposed to be, so...
Hey,
That's a net positive of 30 minutes for me.
I'm going to go with that. I'm much happier with this result than the other. So,
Welcome back, David Radulovich. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not much. Good to be here,
What
guys.
were you doing up here in this neck of the woods? I think you're one of those southern hillbillies now.
I was making dumb decisions on thinking that I could handle the cold still. Teaching up in New York.
Gotcha.
yeah, that's definitely been an eye-opener, this storm that just passed through, I'm sure.
Whoa. Yeah. It was so cold, the trap stopped working. So I had to cancel a whole day of lessons. But it was fun.
You're giving me opportunity here, David.
See, I kind of gave myself an opportunity too, but I'm just thinking, like, I do have friends over there, and I don't want to be mean. But I'm telling you what, like the people up at Rochester Brooks, those are some hardcore people. Because, I mean, I'm sitting there with 3 layers of duck hunting camo. Rated for like negative 60 degrees, freezing, can't feel my feet. And there with like a pair of jeans and like I'm like, what?
A flannel.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. How in the world?
Well, you get used to it. They say your blood gets thicker when you live up north.
I'm not kidding you. That has to be real. Because you go down and live south for just a year, gone. You cannot.
When I went down to Texas, it was like that. And everybody else was walking around with coats on, and I was out in shorts.
Yes.
So I was like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And then I came home after living down there for 5 years, and it would hit 60 degrees, and I'd have like a parka on.
Yes.
And they're like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm starting to think there's something wrong with me altogether.
There's always something wrong.
Right.
No comment.
Shut your mouth.
Sorry. All right, sorry. I just couldn't.
Appreciate you coming in and
Yeah.
talking to us about that. In between now and then, Sean, we've got some questions for the coaches here that came in for David.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to ask the first one, or do you want me to?
Whatever you want me to do. I can fire this off if that's what you want me to do.
Yeah, go ahead with question number 1.
Okay, David. You ready?
Yeah. Does
All
it
right.
say who it's from?
John?
Yeah.
Keller.
John Keller has a question for you, for one of the coaches. Just going to have to be you. Much of what John Woolley worked with me on was seeing the bird, and in particular, focusing on a specific spot on the bird. I went out to practice the day after my lesson with John and did my best to practice as he taught me. There were some blackbirds that were far away, and I could not see anything distinctive on those far blackbirds to focus on. What do the coaches recommend doing on something that far of a distance?
That's a good. It's an interesting question because you talk about. I mean, you take a lesson from any pro. Probably the phrase you're going to hear the most is "see the bird," and if you could somehow do a scientific study on how a professional sees the target and how a non-professional or hobbyist would see the target while they're shooting, and how it makes us feel during the shot, and then also how a professional judges what they need to see on every target presentation while they're shooting around, I think you would find that there's a huge misconception on that. Now, I have to, don't let me get too far off track here, because this question actually can be very deep. But it really depends on the mechanical style of shooting that you have. there's three things with your vision. We have visual acuity, visual discipline, and visual control. Okay, I've talked about that a lot on I think I even talked about it on this podcast, but I know on mine I have. So I'm just going to real quick. Visual acuity is detail. Visual control is like the process at which your eyes establish, the process that your eyes have to go through to establish harmony or synchronization with the target. So like the titration of your focus. And then visual discipline is basically like how long can you hold that. I would argue that the way that I look at there kind of being like two major approaches to shooting. Kind of like the style that I shoot, and then a style that uses like a pull away, swing through type thing. You could kind of trace that back in this game pretty much to Wendell Cherry and Dan Carlisle. So that's why I say there's two. Like the Dan Carlisle method, which is like what Anthony shoots and Corey Cruz and all those guys. I would, and if you had them on here, they might disagree with me, but this is just my opinion. I would argue that for them, either visual control or visual control or visual acuity is maybe more important, the most important, and then lastly, it would probably be visual discipline. For me, the least important is visual acuity, the most important is visual control, and in the middle somewhere is visual discipline. Visual control is the least important for the Carlisle style of shooting. Then the second most important would probably either be acuity or discipline, and then same thing for number one. The reason for that is because of basically how those styles establish a connection with the bird. Okay, so if you look at the way that Carlisle has taught people to shoot, those style of shooters have a much looser hold point, so they're starting further out in the line of the bird. They'll talk to you a lot about like a soft focus early on, and then you transition to a hard focus, then there's an insertion point somewhere, and then you make your move later on in the shot. Well, you don't need super good visual control early on because it doesn't matter the timing at which you start your movement with the gun. For me, it's incredibly important that I start in harmony and synchronization with the target. So my movement has to start right when the target starts. So visual control for me, incredibly important, because if that's off, I'm out of time with the bird. If it's off for Anthony or one of those guys, they're not out of time with the bird because they don't need to be in time from the start. They make a conscious decision to start. So then because of that, because they're making more of a conscious decision, and that's proven true by the fact that they use something like an insertion, then that means there's more of a visually conscious awareness of the gun and the target, because they're deciding, am I going to put the gun +1, +2, or +3 lead in front of this bird before I make my move, or whatever it is. For me, I don't think about an insertion because there is not an insertion. It has to do with my start time. So when they make a decision to do that, and because they're aware of the gun, they need to be able to have good visual discipline and acuity to act as a placebo. So that way they can consciously focus on seeing detail on the bird, and that distracts the conscious mind from looking at the gun. For me, my gun is not in my face until I pull the trigger. I don't need something like detail on the bird to distract my conscious mind from seeing it, from not seeing the gun to make a mistake. Are you guys following me?
Yeah.
So far?
Okay.
So then once we establish that connection, for me, I don't really need to hold it very long because I'm not in the gun very long, right? So, but someone that shoots that other style would need to hold the visual connection very long because they're going to ride the bird and make a move afterwards. I'm not, by this explanation, saying one is better than the other. They're just different and they're equally good, proven by results and how many good shooters shoot each one. But to answer that question for that guy, we have to understand the importance of what he's talking about. He's talking about visual acuity.
Right.
And so the way John shoots is more similar to the way that I shoot. And a really great way to just get somebody to, a very good shooter, all three of those skills are things that we can work on to get better. Okay, so it's a skill that you can build. Visual discipline is a skill you can build. And it's basically the contrast to anxiety of a shot and fear of missing. So the less anxiety and fear of missing that I have, the better visual discipline I have. So that actually can change from day to day. Visual acuity, you can't really make that much better. Maybe with glasses and stuff, you can work a little bit with your eyes. But basically what John's telling them is look at a detail on the bird, because you're newer at this game and don't yet have the ability to have a high level of visual discipline. At the end of the day, especially because John shoots closer to the way that I shoot, I believe, I'm really sorry, John, if I get this wrong, shoots closer to a move mount shoot style. So that means that the guy that asked this question's name was
John Kelly.
John Kelly. So John, both of you guys are named John. So John, when you were taking lessons from John, basically he's wanting to get you to see detail on the bird because he doesn't want you looking at the gun. Do you need to see the detail on the bird? No. As long as you have visual discipline, that's fine. If you measure the difference between how good I see a bird and how good somebody else sees a target, you're going to get varying details, and the relevancy of that is zero. It doesn't matter how good you can see details. It doesn't matter if it's low lighting or good lighting and I can see shadows and reflections and whatever. It does not matter. The only thing that matters is basically that your center ocular portion of your vision is on the target and you've titrated your focus enough to where you're less consciously aware of your peripheral. So, super long story short, what's important is that if you can't see the detail, don't freak out. Because that's the biggest mistake that people make in this game that are new, is that they think that because so many coaches make the mistake of telling them you need to see detail on the bird, that they think if they don't see the detail on the bird, they can't shoot it there or they're doing something wrong.
Right.
And this is where we get a huge difference in professionals and non-professionals, where I recognize the fact if I go to a station and the lighting is bad or the target's far away, I recognize, like, yeah, and Richard, Dr. Colo said this really well on a podcast. He's like, if you can grade how good you see a target 1 through 10, a professional is going to be able to walk into a station and say, yep, today the best I'm going to see that bird is a 6, and they're okay pulling the trigger at a 6. Whereas a hobbyist will be like, I can only see it as a 6, and I need to see it as a 10, so they'll hold on to the shot and miss.
Right.
So,
Okay.
John, basically what you need to do is, as good as you can see it, that's as good as you can see it. And understand that trying to see detail is a placebo to try to trick your conscious mind into not looking at the gun. So work on your visual discipline to see the target really well, hold the connection with your eyes really well, and don't freak out that you can't see detail, because come back to that station another day and you might. Or come back to it again another day and you might see it worse, and that's okay.
That was excellent.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I mean, that was well explained.
If we can't go more than one more question, we're going to run out of tape before we...
No, but I think...
Does it make sense?
No, I
Yeah,
think
no,
David
that
was
makes
right.
perfect
He
sense.
really needed to explain it that
I
way,
have to,
because
yeah.
there's so much going on
Yes.
in a
Yes.
shot, and everybody's different.
Yes, and the style that you shoot hugely influences how important that is.
Yes.
Well, even between the group that we shoot, our friends and stuff, we have a particular guy that wants to ride the target a lot longer than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And, and he shoots fine at the end of a shot, where I would take the shot a lot earlier, a lot more aggressively.
45 yards sooner.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. We call it, we stand back behind him and we look like we're riding the ponies,
Yeah.
like this. Because it's like, he will come onto a target 10 feet out of the trap on a big looping chandelle, and he doesn't take the shot until about 3 feet off the ground.
Wow.
It's like, dude, what were you thinking that time? Well, I just want to make sure to see it.
Yeah.
What?
Wow.
You had 10 minutes to see it.
And I'll say this, he rarely misses any dropping shots. I can tell you that. He's deadly on dropping shots.
Does he ever get a chance to shoot a rising shot?
No.
I just, to me, it's always one of those things that I know everybody's got their own individual thing, their own individual method. And you know what? If that's what works for you, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I also know there's going to be situations in tournaments where a target setter is going to make you take that target earlier than you want to, because there's another bird coming, or there's a true pair or something like that.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see. He shot the night shoot at Cardinal.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember there was a true pair of traps going on? One was like 12 o'clock on the dial, and the other one was like 2 o'clock on the
Yes,
dial.
I remember.
And I was going bang, bang, right? He can't shoot those targets on all that. And he probably can, but his visual focus, whatever it is, he would take that one right about 2 feet off the ground, and that one would be in the weeds. I mean, it's just the way it works. I mean, it's how his mind works. And
is he analytical?
I don't know if that's it or not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a vision thing for him or a confidence thing, or if he just really wants to sync with the target and it takes him that long to do it. I don't know.
When he shoots, is his movement fluid, or is it like...
It's fluid.
Is it?
It's pretty fluid, yeah. I mean, like I said, I know everybody's different.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking him. And
No,
I know he's going to listen to this and he's going to say, they're talking about me.
No, nothing bad.
But we're just all different. I'm way more aggressive than he is, and so is Jason. And sometimes we can often be too aggressive.
Well, I'm going to say that's bit us in the butt.
Yes.
And even days when he's shooting bad and we're shooting good, he'll excel on a station when we're too aggressive.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's some targets that you really should just be patient and wait and not take the shot where you think you need to take it, but just wait, and there it is.
Yeah.
So.
When I'm shooting, I basically have I don't have one way of doing it because I don't really get a choice how, it's for lack of better terms, how my brain's going to be for that shoot. And so let's put it into the one, I'll explain the thing that happens to me most normally, which is that I don't have, you're talking about the zone, and in order to understand what the zone is, because most people can't explain that, but they explain what it feels like, but they don't explain what it is. What they say that it feels like is that the targets look so big and everything looks so slow, and I could, I was thinking so fast, and my reaction times were really good, and I was just so focused and present and in the moment. Great, how do you do that?
Right.
And
we've all had those days where we show up and it just seems like we couldn't hit water if we fell out of the boat. Right?
Yeah.
And other days it's just so effortless.
Yeah. What that is you're accidentally stumbling upon the perfect chemical balance in your head. And there's 5 important, I'm totally blanking right now if they're hormones or just chemicals, but you got adrenaline, dopamine, oxygen, noradrenaline, and norepinephrine. Noradrenaline and norepinephrine, I'm not really going to talk about because I don't really know. but the ones that are super important and the ones that we can really influence are the adrenaline, the dopamine, and the oxygen. And so, have I explained this on here before? No.
I think so.
I think you've touched on it, but
the way that your eyes see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the zone. Okay. And if you want to know what I was just about to go into, you're going to have to search all of the other Dead Pair podcasts, listen to them from start to finish, from the first one ever made, because I'm not going to tell you which one it was on. How's that sound?
Oh, boy.
Whoops. But no, so anyways, that's the zone. So the question is, how do you get into the zone? Because that's what you need to do to shoot really well. Well, guess what? I have a problem producing dopamine in my brain, so that doesn't make it very easy. Yeah. And then because of my ADHD, I can't really experience adrenaline in a normal time period because if it's monotonous to me, I don't really care about it. I can be in the middle of a world championship and literally not be nervous because I don't care if I win or lose. And so that's a big problem, And it can either be a big problem if you understand the actual chemical influence of how good adrenaline can be. But most people would say, oh, that's awesome. You don't feel nervous for a world championship. It's like, no, it's actually a problem, because I can't get in the zone, so to speak. I don't have the high levels of adrenaline, high levels of dopamine, and a lot of oxygen. And so basically I got a couple different versions of what I'm doing. If I feel like if I don't feel excited about the shoot, about winning the shoot, meaning like if I don't get nerves, which is a lot, then I can only focus for small amounts of time. And so that has to only be when I'm in the box. And I'm talking about this, what I do, but in reality, you can apply this to anybody. If you're a shooter and you're trying to, you're working with a coach and they're trying to give you this in-event routine and pre-shot routine, and it just feels so insanely overwhelming to try to do all this stuff, basically what's happening is you're overloading your brain, and you're not going to be able to focus because there's so much to think about that when you're actually shooting the shot, you're going to be so conscious of what you're doing, you can't see the bird. So this would be a good application for somebody like that. This is what you're talking about. I like to enjoy the experience as much as I like winning. So if I'm in that state of mind, then it's going to be fairly dialed down, fairly simple what I'm doing in my head, because I need to make sure that I'm not doing something on repeat, because then it won't work. It'll get on autopilot. And a lot of people experience that. Like, well, I'm running a pre-shot routine, and it just seems like it stops working after the second pair or after halfway through the round, and I'm doing a pre-shot routine in that state of mind, but I'm not doing everything in the pre-shot routine for the sake of it being the same. Because if I do it for the sake of being the same, I'm not getting the results. Right. So what I have to do is up my self-awareness. I need to be paying attention to, like, how does my body feel? How do my eyes feel? How do I feel emotionally? And then I just know where I need to get to for every pair. And so I just get there, and I don't care how I get there. Because if I got there the same way every time, it'd be boring, and I wouldn't be able to do it. So you'd see me in a station. Like, you're going to see me moving back and forth a lot, trying to feel what I want to feel. I'm going to maybe visualize a little bit. Yeah. But basically, I'm just trying to get to those 3 states to be exactly what I want for that presentation. As soon as I walk out of the box, I have to stop the focus, because I can so easily be unable to focus. That's kind of a boring one to talk about, because it's basically that's it. The one that probably we were talking about on the phone that you found interesting was, I remember you telling me about how, like, you feel like you're, like you said, that rev limiter, like your brain's always going wild, right?
110%, yes.
Yes, and what I was talking about was telling you how, how important it is to be able to not be in that place when you're shooting.
Right. And
because if you're in that place when you're shooting, you're going to become, like, hyper analytical about stuff. You're going to be too externally aware. It's called exteroceptive versus interoceptive, meaning that right now, if you're paying attention to what I'm saying, you're very exteroceptive right now, because your consciousness is focused on things outside of you. Okay. But if it's the opposite, you're going to be paying attention to how you feel, how you see, what you're thinking, that kind of stuff. And if you get to the point where your brain's on, like, at the rev limiter, then you're going to be very easy for you to lose presence of mind, very easy for you to go down a rabbit hole of negative thoughts, very easy for you to allow those negative thoughts to can totally control your actions and even your decision making. Like, you won't. I'm speaking from just what I know about how people, respond, not by watching you shoot. So, like, you'll. If you get mad, you're going to react to the anger, which is going to take away your time to plan and read birds, and then which is going to make you shoot bad, and that's going to make you be more mad, which is going to make you react to it even more, and you've created a snowball effect that's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And then you will feel like it's impossible to stop.
Right.
And and how you deal with the anger. I'm not saying you're going to be throwing shells, but that could be internal or external. Mm-hmm. And so what I was talking to you about was basically saying that, if you feel like that is the way that your brain works when you're shooting, that you need to be able to kind of flip yourself to being introspective, being aware of how you're thinking and feeling, and being able to gauge that and do something to control it. And you probably remember me saying that it's like, let's say, to make this simple, to you get to a station, and I know these numbers are totally theoretical and mean nothing, but let's just say that you need to be at the level of a 3 mentally and physically and 10 visually.
Right.
And you're at a 5 visually, which is bad, 10 meaning really good. And you're at a 10 mentally and physically, so it means you're really amped up and really physically tense. And we need to get down to a 3 on those 2 things.
Right.
I said it's impossible to go from 10 to 3 and stay there.
Yes.
Remember?
Right.
And because what happens is you once you got there, by the time you call pull and shoot, you're going to be at a 5 to 7 to maybe 10 again.
We can edit that, right?
Sure we can.
It doesn't matter. I thought that was me for a second. I'm leaving. What a host. What a terrible host.
It's his first podcast.
It must be his first
he didn't
podcast,
realize how to silence his phone before the
Oh.
Sean, you can help me out here with this one. You know, like I said, I'm amped up. That's just the way I am.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like a squirrel on crack and just chug a Red Bull. So.
That's pretty accurate, no, honestly. Continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Remember this whole thing about shutting your mouth and talking to me?
I know, we're on video now, so I got evidence when you're throwing things and everything else. So